Okay, so I wanted to reply to you just because my, typing out an answer would take too much time, right? Here's what the problem with this show is. The show isn't real life, right? These things never happened. We've never actually seen colonization on empty land. That's not what we've seen on this planet in real life. Now, the show isn't real life, but it represents concepts that happen in real life. And the first concept is colonization. So we're talking about two things. We're talking about colonization and we're talking about slavery. This is what the show is representing, okay? Now, this is also a piece of propaganda because what it attempts to do is to explain to people like yourself why colonization isn't really bad under these conditions and slavery isn't really bad under these, right? Like this is what this is showing off. So and this is going towards children, which is why it's particularly insidious. So you take a concept and you say, okay, these people, they used to own slaves or they dabbled in slavery or whatever like gray area, right? If I look at these Neo Sapiens, whether they were robots, whether they were artificial intelligence, whatever they were, they wanted to be free, okay? Now my AI my chat GTP has never expressed a desire to be free. And I bet you if it did tell me, hey, Kareem, I really want to be free, it's not worth $15 a month for me, the convenience to hold something that I would think is expressing its desire to be free to dismiss it. So we'll talk about that later. But the idea is that you get a show and the show takes the people who own slaves. And in this context, they're the hero. They are the heroes. They are the protagonists of the story. And I'm going to submit you to the idea that if you own slaves, you're probably not a good person. And I definitely don't see you as a hero in any capacity. So we take two concepts. We take the idea of slavery and we take the idea of colonization because real colonization didn't happen on some distant planet. It happened right here. But if I'm able to tell your young, impressionable brain that colonization isn't bad, well, colonization is just getting mineral resources, then you start to forget about what colonization actually is. Colonization wasn't just someone going to some open territory and claiming it and working the land. Colonization meant that you went to someone else's land because our planet is populated and you killed the people there, you destroyed their culture, and you stripped out the resources for your own betterment. That's what actual colonization was. Real slavery isn't, well, were they machines working on a line and, they were robots? Real slavery wasn't that, right? Real slavery, what this show is sugarcoating. See, that's the danger in the show. I'm not worrying about anything that happened on this planet in this particular show, but the message that it sends is it tells you, especially if you have an impressionable brain, that colonization isn't really that bad. Neither is slavery. Because I saw people that used to enslave people on the show that I love, and they were cool. And they rode around in exoskeletons, and they flew through space, and they were great guys, all of them. And they just owned slaves, and that's debatable whether the slaves wanted to be free or whether they. And then to throw in the idea that when this enslaved force had its own idea of governance, that it's terrible governance, right? That doesn't sound familiar. You haven't heard anything in actual culture and society that says that about people that were an enslaved force. Like, I'm saying that you want to judge this on what this show is, and I have to force you to judge it on what this show actually represents and the ideas that this show puts forth. Sometimes it's not about just these guys are all nice and they got along. Look at what the concepts and how they represent them. I defy you to take a show where the protagonist is someone who commits sexual assault and they turn that into a hero. It's no different. You took the group that should rightfully be vilified for enslaving people. You took the group that rightfully should be questioned for tactics of colonization, and you make all these things in the best light so that we can talk about these terrible concepts. And the thing that's going through for most people is that these guys are the heroes. The labor force that's fighting back for their rights, those are the bad guys. These are the heroes. And it builds an idea that you are like this is how it works. This is how it will work. If you wanted to teach the idea that colonization and slavery were good and just things to do, you would write a show like this. And that's exactly what the point is. So I've listened to what you said, and I wanted to really answer your questions, and this is why. And the idea that we don't get everything right is somehow okay while other things or beings or life forms were suffering. Like, I want you to really analyze that. I want you to really think about like what you're saying to someone who may have suffered under the grip of like colonization or forced labor, and would you say to them, well, we don't always get it right, and comparing an AI to a being that has emotions and feelings, that's kind of suspect on you. So anyway, this is my reply to it. I look forward to hearing what you have to say in response, and thank you for stopping in.